Hello, hello, and welcome again. I want to talk to you guys about inflammation. I know that you have chronic inflammation, otherwise, you would not be signed up in this program. But what often people don't realize is how it's impacting them in so many more ways than they realize. And this is really important to get clear about as we move into this program so that it gives us even more motivation and inspiration to make the changes that will give us lasting results. So very often, someone may go to a doctor and the doctor does a blood test and they say you have high levels of inflammation, right? Maybe you have an autoimmune condition and you know there's lots of inflammation. But here's the deal. It's likely impacting you, in more ways than you realize. Chronic inflammation is at the root cause of nearly every single chronic ailment, condition, and disease. That includes behavioral, so things like a sensory condition that my son had, or still has to some degree, but it's about 90% better than when he was younger because we changed his diet. So sensory conditions, ADD, ADHD, any sort of behavioral type condition, if it's chronic, inflammation is at the root of that. Chronic physical conditions. So any sort of physical symptom that you've been experiencing for 1 or 2 months or longer is considered a chronic physical condition, a chronic physical symptom. Those are rooted. The root of that is inflammation. When we can eliminate the inflammation, so much of the symptoms that you're experiencing, the discomfort you're experiencing melt away. They reverse or significantly improve. I have 100% success rate in helping people with this when they follow these steps. And honestly, it's partly me, but it's mostly the science. When we take away the inflammation, the symptoms melt away. It's very cool. And then the third is any sort of chronic behavioral or emotional condition that you may experience, such as chronic anxiety, chronic depression. Those chronic symptoms are also rooted in inflammation. Now that's very different than, having a loved one who passes away and you become depressed or anxious for a short period of time. That's situational. I'm talking about chronic symptoms. I want to give you an idea when it comes to physical chronic symptoms of how inflammation may impact you, because even though you're hearing this, our brain has a hard time identifying unless it really can hear some of the specific symptoms you may be experiencing. So I like to tell you, pretend like you have a magic wand and take that wand and scan the top of your head all the way down your body to the tips of your toes. And notice if you could take that wand and wave it and have perfect health, right? What symptoms would you need to change in your body? What conditions would you need to change? Is there a disease? Is there just a slight nagging or subtle undertone of something that doesn't feel perfect? Make a note of that. There's actually a stickman figure. If you scroll to the bottom of this screen, there's a stickman figure on a PDF that you can print out, or you can draw your own. And on that stickman, after you scan your body, make a note of every place in your body and your mind, or you can put on the side if there's a behavioral condition that's where you think chronic inflammation is impacting you, chronic symptoms. Here's a list. I'm just going to read off a list of a bunch of very common symptoms of chronic inflammation. So digestive disorders is huge, right? Including gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, acid reflux, Crohn's disease, IBS, IBS-C, ulcerative colitis. There's so many, both diagnosed and non-diagnosed symptoms that have to do with digestive disorders. High blood glucose. So if you have diabetes, or if you have insulin levels are not stabilized, blood sugar levels are not stabilized, that largely is due to chronic inflammation, as is hormonal imbalance. So often when we have hormonal imbalance, we can heal it through 2 ways: dialing in our macronutrients, our protein, carbs, and fat ratios, and eliminate the inflammation in your body. I had severe endometriosis When I was younger, I actually had to have surgery on it, and then it came back again. I was told I wouldn't be able to have kids for years, if at all. And I healed that completely through my diet. I was also prescribed 120 units of Armour Thyroid over-the-counter prescription medication, and I'm now completely off of that. This has all been healed through diet, you guys. It's so amazing what can happen. Some more symptoms of chronic inflammation: weight gain, especially around your waist, and especially if you're having a hard time getting it off. Fatigue or constant exhaustion, difficulty sleeping, again, chronic anxiety and depression, brain fog, that's a big one, poor memory, not being able to think clearly, not feeling grounded, chronic skin problems such as psoriasis, eczema, acne, redness, puffiness, chronic rashes, headaches and migraines, allergy symptoms, whether they're from food allergies, that's likely due to leaky gut, which is another symptom or condition due to chronic inflammation, but also seasonal allergies. If you can eliminate the inflammation in your body, you can really improve and sometimes completely reverse seasonal allergies. Gum disease. If you are the kind of person who frequently has colds or flus, that can be due to chronic inflammation. Chronic joint pain and muscles, arthritis, any just sort of lingering and unexplained random pains. I have had people who had structural issues with their back and thought they needed to go and like herniated discs and they need to go get surgery. And as soon as they instead adopted this way of eating and living, their body healed, because inflammation goes to the areas we're most susceptible to. So they had an area they were susceptible to due to structural issues in their body. So when inflammation went into the body, it went to the back, it went to the herniated disc where there was a structural compromise, and it created extra pain. As soon as we took that inflammation away that was going to the structure, all of a sudden that herniated disc was actually the pains completely went away, and there was a regeneration of the cells that were able to begin, right? So this is such a short list. There's diabetes, any sort of autoimmune condition, type 2 diabetes or type 1 diabetes, Lyme disease, parasites. You probably know my story about that, and if you don't, you will learn soon. There are cancer is often the root of that is chronic inflammation. They're just about everything you can think of, again, that is chronically happening in your body for 1 or 2 months or longer period of time. Write that down on your stick man. Inflammation is impacting you. Really quickly, the top 5 things that cause chronic inflammation: diet, lack of water, not just for hydration, but for detoxing purposes. And you'll be learning more about that soon. Not enough rest, stress, and not enough movement or too much. If you're an ultra endurance marathon runner or some sort of really high intensity or ultra endurance type person, you may be actually receiving chronic inflammation from too much exercise. So those are the top 5 things that cause chronic inflammation in the body. We will be addressing all of them during the 9-week course, but diet is number 1. And water, having enough water. Those are the 2 biggest things you can do to make a huge difference in your life. So we're going to hit those strong.